2 weeks ago, I sat down in an ordinary chair and asked myself one simple question. Could I stand back up without using my hands? That's it. That's the whole test. No equipment, no gym, just a chair and my own body. What I found out over the next 14 days changed how I think about getting older. This channel exists to help people move and eat better as the years go by. But first, I need to be honest with you. I'm not a doctor. Nothing here replaces a real conversation with your physician, especially if you have joint problems, balance issues, or a history of falling. Please talk to your doctor before trying anything you see in this video. Now, here's why I even started this experiment. There's a simple movement test that researchers have been studying for decades. It's called the sit-to-stand test. Sit in a chair, cross your arms over your chest, and stand up without using your hands. Some versions count how many times you can do that in 30 seconds. Other versions time how long it takes you to do it 5 times in a row. This isn't a trend someone invented for social media. It goes back to 1999, when researchers Rickley and Jones developed it to measure functional fitness in older adults living independently. Since then, it's been adopted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as part of a program called STEADI, Stopping Elderly Accidents, Deaths, and Injuries. Health professionals use this exact test to screen people for fall risk. And that word, fall risk, is why I couldn't stop thinking about this test. Studies show people who score below the expected range for their age and gender face a higher chance of falling. Not eventually now. Every day you don't know your number is a day you're guessing about something you could actually measure right in your living room. So I decided to stop guessing. Every single morning, before coffee, before anything else, I sat down and stood up. I counted my reps. I wrote down the number. Day 1 felt harder than I expected. My legs shook a little on the way up. I caught myself thinking, is this really how weak I've gotten? That thought stayed with me longer than I wanted it to. Day 2 wasn't much better, but something interesting happened. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. Which leg pushed harder? Whether I leaned forward before standing, how badly I wanted to use my hands, even though I wasn't allowed to. Small details, but they added up to a picture of my own body I'd never actually looked at. Before we go further, I want to ask you for something. If this kind of honest, research-based content is useful to you, please subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps us keep making videos like this. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me the number you got the first time. I read every single one. And what happened by day 5 of that quiet morning ritual is where things got interesting. On day 5, I got scared. Not dramatically, just enough to remember it. I stood up too fast, my balance shifted, and for a half second I genuinely thought I might go down. I caught myself on the armrest, heart pounding, feeling embarrassed in an empty room with nobody watching. That moment taught me something the research already knew. This test isn't something to rush through for a number. If you decide to try it, do it near a sturdy chair, ideally with the back against a wall so it can't slide. And if you have any history of dizziness or falling, have someone nearby the first few times. This is exactly the kind of thing your doctor or a physical therapist can help you do safely, especially if you're unsure where you stand. After that scare, I slowed everything down. And slowing down actually made the test more honest. I wasn't rushing to hit a number anymore. I was paying attention to control, to how my knees tracked, to whether I was using momentum instead of muscle. There are 2 common versions of this test, and I want to explain the difference. One counts how many complete stands you can do in 30 seconds, arms crossed over your chest the whole time. The other, called the 5 times sit-to-stand test, simply times how long it takes you to stand up and sit down 5 times in a row. Researchers have studied both versions extensively, and both have been found reliable and valid for measuring strength. and function in older adults, not just in healthy people, but in patients recovering from serious illness too. By the end of day 5, I noticed something small but real. My legs weren't shaking as much on the way up. That could have been coincidence. It could have been my nervous system simply getting used to a movement it hadn't practiced in years. Either way, I wrote the number down and kept going. What surprised me more than the physical part was the mental shift. I started looking forward to that 1 minute each morning. Not because it was fun, but because it felt like checking in with myself. No scale, no mirror, just a chair and an honest answer. Week 1 was ending, and I had no idea yet how different week 2 would feel. By day 6, I'd settled into a rhythm. Wake up, drink water, walk to the same chair, cross my arms, and go. The consistency mattered more than I expected. Same chair, same time of day, same clothes, more or less. Because if you change too many variables, you can't trust whether the number moved because of your body or because of the conditions. Day 7 arrived, and I sat down to look at the whole first week laid out in front of me. 7 mornings, 7 numbers, and a pattern that wasn't dramatic, but it was there. A slow, steady climb. I'll admit, I expected either nothing to change or something huge to happen. Neither happened. What happened instead was quieter. My form got cleaner. My hesitation got shorter. The half-second pause before standing, the one where your brain seems to ask, "Are you sure?" started disappearing. That's not something a single number captures, but it's real, and it matters most for long-term independence. Not a dramatic transformation, but steady, boring, compounding improvement in a movement you'll need every single day for the rest of your life. Let's talk about why this movement matters so much for daily life, because I think this is the part most people skip past without really absorbing it. Standing up from a chair is not just an exercise. It's the same motion you use to get off the toilet, to get out of the car, to rise from bed, to stand up from the couch after dinner. Researchers studying functional independence in older adults have found that lower extremity strength, the exact kind measured by this test, directly correlates with the ability to perform these everyday activities without help. Read that again. Not correlates with athletic performance, correlates with independence itself. With whether you need someone else in the room when you get out of bed in the morning. That reframed the entire experiment for me. I wasn't testing fitness anymore. I was testing autonomy. Day 8, I noticed my mindset had shifted. I stopped thinking of it as a chore and started thinking of it as protecting something. Not vanity, not appearance. The simple, unglamorous ability to take care of myself without asking for help. Day 9 brought a different kind of realization. I started noticing the test everywhere in my regular life. Getting up from the dinner table, standing after gardening, rising from a low seat at a friend's house. I found myself unconsciously checking my form. Chest up, weight through my heels, no lurching forward. The daily practice was bleeding into my actual life, which is exactly what functional fitness is supposed to do. Day 10, the halfway point of week 2. I hit a number that genuinely surprised me. 2 more repetitions than day 1. That might sound small. It's not nothing. In 2 weeks, with no gym, no equipment, no special program, just 1 honest minute a day, my body had adapted. I want to be careful here, because I don't want to oversell what a 2-week personal experiment can prove. This isn't a clinical trial. It's 1 person, 1 chair, 14 mornings, but it lines up with something researchers already know, that the body responds to consistent, specific movement, even when that movement is as unglamorous as standing up from a chair. There was one more piece of the science I hadn't looked into yet, and it turned out to be the most sobering part of the whole experiment. People who scored in the lowest range on this test faced a dramatically higher risk of death from any cause over the years that followed, compared to people who scored close to perfect. And this wasn't a small pilot study either. A more recent follow-up published in 2025 expanded the research to more than 4,000 adults, tracked for over a decade, and confirmed that sitting rising scores predicted not just overall mortality, but specifically deaths related to cardiovascular disease. Now, I need to be really clear about something, because this is exactly where health content on the internet tends to go wrong. This is an association, not a guarantee, and not a diagnosis. A low score doesn't mean you're doomed. A high score doesn't mean you're invincible. What it means is that the ability to move your own body through space is deeply connected to overall health. I also want to say plainly, I did not attempt the floor version during this experiment, and I'm not encouraging you to try it without guidance either. It requires more flexibility and balance than the chair version. If you're curious about your own score, that's a conversation to have with your doctor first, not a solo project. Day 11 is the one I almost didn't include in this video. I was tired that morning, slept badly the night before. And tired mornings are exactly when people get careless, including me. I sat down, crossed my arms, and started my usual 30 seconds. Around rep number 7, my foot slid slightly on the floor. My weight shifted wrong, and for one real ugly second, I was falling. I caught the chair. My heart was pounding, and I just sat there for a minute, not moving, thinking about how easily that could have gone differently. A slightly worse angle, a slicker floor, no chair to catch. This is the part where I stop being a guy telling you a story and start being honest. Falls are not a minor inconvenience for older adults. They are one of the leading causes of injury-related hospital visits. And the fear of falling alone can quietly shrink someone's world, making them avoid stairs, avoid walking outside, avoid the activities that keep them strong. It becomes a cycle. Less movement leads to less strength leads to more fear leads to even less movement. That's exactly why this simple test exists. Not to scare you, to catch a weakness while it's still small enough to fix, instead of after it's already caused a fall. After that near miss on day 11, I changed my setup. I moved the chair against a wall like I should have from day 1. I stopped doing the test first thing when I was groggy and did it after I'd been up and moving for a bit. Small adjustments, but they mattered. I also want to say this directly, because I think it's the most important sentence in this entire video. If you try this test yourself and you feel unsteady, stop. Don't push through it to get a better number. Talk to your doctor before you start, especially if you've had a fall in the past year, or if you feel dizzy. That scare on day 11 didn't stop the experiment, but it changed how I thought about it. This was a rehearsal for staying safe in my own home. Day 12, I went back to the chair with a different kind of respect for it, slower, more deliberate, feet planted the way they're supposed to be. And something clicked. My knees tracked over my feet without me consciously steering them. My core engaged. It had become automatic. That's actually the goal of any functional movement practice. You're trying to make an essential movement so familiar that it happens safely without a second thought. Day 13, I noticed something outside the test entirely. I was helping move some boxes and caught myself getting up off the floor afterward without thinking twice. 2 weeks earlier, that would have involved a hand on the nearest solid object and a small groan. This time it just happened. Day 14, the last morning of the experiment. I sat down in the same chair I'd used every single day, crossed my arms, took a breath, and started. Your results depend entirely on your own starting point, age, health conditions, and consistency, not on copying mine. What I will tell you is this. My final count was noticeably higher than my very first morning. My form was cleaner. My hesitation was gone. And the shaky, uncertain feeling from day 1 had been replaced by something closer to quiet confidence. I sat there afterward, looking at 14 numbers. and felt something I didn't expect going into this. Not pride, exactly. Something closer to relief, like I'd checked something important about myself that I'd been avoiding checking for years. Here's what I think this experiment actually proved, beyond my own personal numbers. This test isn't about becoming stronger than everyone else your age. It's not a competition. It's a mirror. A very simple, very honest mirror that shows you exactly where your legs, your balance, and your confidence stand today, and gives you a chance to do something about it before a fall. If you want to try this yourself, here's what I'd actually suggest. Talk to your doctor first. Use a sturdy chair against a wall. Start slow. And don't chase a number on day one. Write your results down so you can actually see the pattern instead of guessing at it. And if anything feels unsafe, stop and ask a professional before continuing. 2 weeks ago, I sat down in a chair and asked a question I'd been avoiding. Can I still get up on my own, cleanly, safely, without help? Now I have a real answer, and a way to keep checking that answer for the rest of my life. I think there's a quiet fear a lot of us carry as we get older, one we don't say out loud very often. The fear of losing the small, ordinary abilities we've never had to think about. Standing up, walking to the mailbox, getting off the floor after gardening. Nobody warns you that these things can fade quietly, one small compromise at a time. Until one day, you notice you've stopped doing something you used to do without a second thought. What this 2-week experiment taught me is that you don't have to wait. You can check in, today, with nothing but a chair and one honest minute. And if the number you get isn't where you want it to be, that's not a verdict. It's information. Information you can actually act on, ideally alongside your doctor or a physical therapist who can build a safe plan around exactly where you're starting from. That's the real lesson here. Not the specific number of stands I did on day 14. The fact that showing up, imperfectly, honestly, one unglamorous morning at a time, changes something. Slowly, quietly, but really. If you've been putting off a real conversation with your doctor about your strength, your balance, or your risk of falling, let this be the nudge. Not fear, just honesty. The kind of honesty this test forces on you, whether you're ready for it or not. Before I go, I want to say this clearly one more time, because it matters more than anything else in this video. This content is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Please consult your doctor before making changes to your diet or routine, especially if you take medication or have a health condition. What worked for me won't look identical for you, and that's exactly why a real conversation with a real professional matters more than anything I've said here. If this video helped you see something in a new way, do 3 things for me. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what we cover next. Leave a comment telling me one thing you'll remember. And if you think someone in your life needs to hear this, a parent, a neighbor, a friend, share it with them today. It might be the nudge they've been waiting for too. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.